gathered in and from this ancient house on this ancient hill, gathered on this ancestral land of the Massachusetts people, gathered once again for worship, to reflect, to lift for ourselves our highest values, most cherished, dear ones. Remind ourselves how we would live through all the seasons of our lives, through all the seasons around us. As the seasons change, once again, we gather again, wherever and whoever we are, and we enter this time of worship, reflection, contemplation, meditation, prayer, and we enter with love, knowing it is good to be gathered. We begin. Chalice lighter this morning from the remote but present place of her home is Catherine Mays. Catherine.
Good morning, everybody. In this time of seasonal change and my own personal discomfort with changes, this poem by Jane Kenyon gives me a way in to appreciate when things start to move. It's called Things. The hen flings a single pebble aside with her yellow reptilian foot. Never in eternity the same sound, a small stone falling on a red leaf. The juncture of twig and branch scarred with lichen is a gate we might enter singing. The mouse pulls batting from a 100-year-old quilt. She chewed a hole in a blue star to get it. And now she thrives. Now is her time to thrive. Things simply lasting, then failing to last. Water, a blue heron's eye, and the light passing between them. Into light, all things must fall, glad at last to have fallen. We light the chalice this morning for our beautiful opportunity to be together in this old meeting house. In gratitude.
In that spirit and with that gratitude, we light our flaming chalice. Our opening hymn, which you can follow along or sing if you're at home, hum or sing very quietly here in the meeting house, is Lady of the Seasons, Laughter, number 51 in our gray hardback hymn book.
Mercy.
Good morning. And a warm welcome to worship at and from our Old Ship Meeting House. So welcome to those of you who've been attending here for years or decades. And a warm welcome, any of you who may be relatively new this morning or recently. We look forward to getting to know you. I did notice that I think we've run out of programs back here. You might want to share with someone who seems like they don't have one. There are a few more programs perhaps at that door. We want to make sure everyone can follow along. If you are new, we invite you to get to know us with conversations or by exploring our website, oldshipchurch.org. Good to have everyone here. Following the service, there will be a fellowship hour here outdoors. It's a crisp, beautiful day, and the Zoom link will remain open for those of you who are on Zoom for conversation. A couple of announcements. This afternoon at the Church of the Resurrection in South Hingham, 1057 Main Street, outdoors, the Hingham Hall religious leaders and NBNA Hospice will be hosting an outdoors, remembrance service for all those who've gone away from us through the COVID pandemic or through other causes over the past year and a half. I'll be participating in that service along with my colleagues. Our Old Ship Remembrance Service annually will be next Sunday at our usual time. Of course, our worship service will be our time of remembrance for our members and friends and for all dear ones who have passed from among us. We are fortunate this morning to have a guest storyteller. Judy, are you over there where you usually are? Judy Flaherty has a wonderful book that she pointed out to me this week and agreed, almost on the spur of the moment, to be our storyteller. Thank you, Judy. So she'll hold it up for Zoom and hopefully some of you will see the picture too.
There you go. So this book is called Dreamers. It's by Juji Morales. And I love it because she came here in 1994 with her 2-month-old son from Mexico. She came to the US through Texas and on to San Francisco. And because it just seemed more fitting for reading this book, I borrowed a book from the library to bring. I have my own copies because I love the book.
I have her own copy.
Oops, wait, I just need my glasses, sorry. I dreamed of you, and then you appeared. And together, we became amor, love, resplendent life, you and I. Oops, see the problem with masks, you can't lick your finger to turn the pages. There you go. I dreamed of you. Oh my gosh, see, oh, I found it. Sorry, here we go. One day, we bundled gifts in our backpack and we crossed a bridge outstretched like the universe. And if you can see in the backpack, these are like little toys that show up throughout the story, which is fun. When we made it to the other side, thirsty, in awe, unable to go back, we became immigrants. Migrantes, you and I. The sky and the land welcomed us in words unlike those of our ancestors. And you can see up here, the clouds are saying things backwards. Say something. What? Speak English. And down here, give thanks. Here she's on the phone. Hola, mama. Hi. There were so many things we didn't know, unable to understand and afraid to speak. And we made some mistakes, like bathing in a fountain. You and I became caminantes, hikers. thousands and thousands of steps we took around this land. And look, you can see them stepping, and there's even bare footprints all around. There's, puppies for adoption up here, and some people with signs. And they're hiking around until one day we found a place we had never seen before. Suspicious, improbable. I don't know how you do this. Unbelievable, surprising, unimaginable. And they're surrounded by all these books. Where we didn't need to speak, we only needed to trust. And we did. And she talks about how the day that the librarian passed the library card to her son, and they finally started going home with a stroller full of books, how magic that was. Books became our language. Books became our home. Books became our lives. We learned to read. To speak, to write, and to make our voices heard. Someday, we will become something we haven't even yet imagined. But right now, we are stories. We are two languages. We are luchas, struggle. We are resilience. We are hope. And we are dreamers. Sonadores of the world. We are love.
Thank you, Judy. And the author makes the point in her postscript. She's titled the book Dreamers, but it doesn't refer specifically to those undocumented children who've grown up here. It refers to all immigrants and others who are dreamers, who have a dream of a life to be. Thank you, Judy. We light candles each Sunday, candles of joy, candles of sorrow, candles of concern. Two of you have asked for candles. I'll read what you've written. Rick Hall, who's over here today, but he sent me this request for 2 candles. One for remembrance. He writes, for my father, Alan Hall, whose 94th birthday would have been tomorrow, October 25th. And the second candle for all who suffer from over-reliance on substances and pain medication to get through the day, and that all of them can find help and strength to accept that help. And Mary Thomas asks for this candle of gratitude, deep gratitude to the Los Angeles branch of the Shoah Foundation for the emergence of a scholar ready to take on the study of the 100 testimonies of Albanian survivors of prison and labor camps during the communist dictatorship. The British postdoctoral scholar who's taken this on learned Albanian as a teenager and has been involved in Albanian issues for 30 years. Many of us here were among the donors. We learned from Mary's sister, Rose, about the project, and some of us helped out as best we could. So she says those at the former Albanian Human Rights Project, which collected the testimonies over 10 years, and steadfast donors, including members of Old Ship, are realizing their goal that the testimonies will live in history. So I light these candles to start. In memory of Rick's Father, and for all those struggling with substance abuse to get through the day, they may find help. And in gratitude for the Albanian research project continuing. Daveline on Zoom is going to read any joys, sorrows, or concerns from chat. Daveline?
Yes, so Ken, I have only one, and it's actually from me. A candle of healing, love, and support for my friend Judy Mangione, who is undergoing chemotherapy in anticipation of a bone marrow transplant for her leukemia in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Daveline. We light this candle for your friend as she approaches this challenging treatment. We wish for her healing. I light these final two candles for any joys. Oh, no, I should ask if there's anyone in the room who has a joy, sorrow, or concern. Oh, and there are. So we have Pat and then Beth. Pat.
I'd like to light a candle for Larry Walensky and Joan, their members and friends at Linden Pond. Larry is an avid storyteller. Joan has stage 4 cancer, and we suffered a fall from which she won't recover, and she's now in hospice. We send her love and care.
For these two friends at Linden Ponds, in the midst of their significant challenges right now, we send healing. Beth.
Everything there is to be. And many know that by the end of the weekend, we'll have moved my daughter and son and 5 grandchildren. So I'd like you to light a candle of appreciation for your leadership, Jim, for the shift that I've experienced over 30 years here on the ship, for the fun, for the comfort, for the opportunity for reflection and spiritual growth. I thank you, and I will be in boxes for a while, but Colin, thank you. I will be in one of these boxes.
Oh, Beth. Many of you heard what she said. You may not have all, but Beth is lighting this candle as she prepares for her move later this week to Pennsylvania, to be very close to her wonderful family. And we will miss you, Beth. She lights a candle of gratitude for all the spiritual fellowship here for these years, over 35 years, Beth, because you and Paul were members when I arrived. In fact, Susan and I had one of our very first occasions of hospitality in your home during my candidating week, I think it was. We, all of us, are grateful for all that you and your family have given to us all these years, decades. And we look forward to seeing you on one of those other boxes often. Safe travels. Blessings. Anyone else? Top that. No, but seriously, are there any joys or sorrows? Well, these candles do burn as well for any joys, sorrows, or concerns deeply felt, even though they've remained unexpressed in words among us. And we will now, as we do each week, sing quietly our young people out for their programs. I think this morning they will be making bag lunches for folks at Father Bill's. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Oh, we'll miss them, but aren't they doing indeed good work?
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Keep your eyes on the road ahead. But if you're feeling lost in the night, it's okay to cry, just as long as you hold your head. 'Cause we're on our way to better days, betters ahead, betters ahead. It's just for it's better, betters ahead. Betters ahead, better days are coming. Better days are coming. I know you've been kissed down, slept on, let down, they've gone. Waited for too long for something to lean on. Feel weak, be strong. Take deep breaths, stay calm. Just press on, press on, press on. You'll see there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Keep your eyes on the road ahead. Just feeling lost in the night. It's okay to cry, just as long as you hold your head. 'Cause we're on our way to better days, betters ahead, betters ahead. It's just for it's better, betters ahead, betters ahead. Better days are coming. Better days are coming. I know you feel left out, stepped on, leave on, keep on shining bright. Just for your heart, keep going higher,
We are so blessed by our musicians. That was a Unitarian Universalist amen. I heard that. May we enter our time of meditation, prayer, and silence. Pausing as we do this time each week, pausing in the rush of days and hours and minutes, pausing to be for a time apart from time. As we join hearts and minds in quiet reflection, meditation, prayer, just pausing, breathing, present together. As by whatever name our yearnings of the heart rise, call them prayers, call them wishes, call them hopes. For those who grieve, from whom we've heard this morning and who we know are grieving our own grief. For those lost, for times gone by, holding one another in our grief. Hopes, prayers for those who are ill, facing significant treatments, challenge, perhaps hospice, as we've heard, holding all those in our hearts, in our minds, in our thoughts. Even as we pray for the larger hurting world, those oppressed, those suffering the not so early devastations of climate change, those in the midst of war. Our hands are but two, but our prayers, our hopes, our wishes can extend infinite distance to embrace all. And in this spirit, may we feel during our time together that we are not alone. We have each other. There is power in that. We are held. We are loved. There is power in that and goodness. As we enter the silence, contemplative, peaceful silence. Rick is ahead of me. Our reader this morning, Rick Matilla. Thanks so much, Rick.
Good morning. Our reading this morning is from the first 8 verses of chapter 3 of Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, Rick. Beautiful. Our offering each week supports the various ministries of our congregation. You may leave your offering if you're here in the meeting house in one of the baskets at either door as you go. Our offering online, which anyone who's remote can do at any time, and you can do at any time, may also be given to our monthly outreach offering. And this week, well, last week we heard from a representative of the the New England Institute of New England to support their work with Afghan refugees, resettlement. And we may all during this month on the pull down donate menu continue to donate to that important and timely cause. So however much your gift is able to be, and to whatever direction you send it, we thank you for your generosity. We also thank anyone who has brought food for our food pantry. That invitation stands each week. You can leave it under the table as you come in or as you leave. Thank you. And now, walk with an open heart.
As I walk along on this weary day, I will sing a song
As some of you may recall, I've preached from the book of Ecclesiastes on a number of occasions from time to time. And we've sung Pete Seeger's adaptation of those verses we heard Rick read more than once, as we will sing those lines again, or listen to them anyway, later on this morning. Now, I first read Ecclesiastes, don't know how I found it, actually, one summer as a camp counselor in the Adirondacks when I was in college. It resonated for me then, just as it's resonated in all the years since. And it's interesting to me that a book clearly written by an older man, maybe not older than I am now, but older than that young man then, still really adolescent, late adolescence, but it resonated. And here it had been written by this old guy who had, as you read the text, the whole text, it's clear that he'd experimented, if that's the right word, with all the usual paths that we humans think of towards, that we think might give us happiness and meaning. Experimented with pleasure, with gaining power. I mean, he was a man of privilege, clearly, you get this. Power, privilege, prestige, and so on, and work. So this text, written by this old guy who'd kind of been through everything, resonated with this callow youth who had at the time very little opportunity to experiment in most of those ways. But his words did strike chords, similar to the chords struck by another book I read at about the same time. Lots of us of this generation anyway read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse back then, and some have read it since. Similar story in a way. The character Siddhartha in the book had tried pleasure, tried everything, and finally found meaning, deep meaning. Only he learned a bit from the Buddha himself. It was set in about that time. Finally, he found peace, tranquility, deep meaning as a simple ferryman, ferrying people from one side of a river to another. Nice metaphor, that, by the way. But as for the writer of Ecclesiastes, variously known, also it's ascribed to King Solomon, quite unlikely, but variously unknown as teacher or preacher, this writer. He seems to have eventually found peace in simple things also. This admonition that occurs throughout the book, it sort of rambles in and out of themes, but the admonition is to enjoy all the simple gifts of life given us. He said, there is nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. And all this is in the context of knowing, as he wrote right at the outset, that life is short, a vanity. Vanity is a poor translation, actually, of a Hebrew word that simply means a breath of wind, transient, comes and goes. Life is short. And that double meaning that we hear applies to an extent too. But it was in this spirit of transience that I once preached a sermon a long time ago. Only a few of you might remember this one, called The Bible's Hidden Buddhist. Anyway, all this by way of musing on this fact that the ancient book has resonated for me to begin with as a young guy, as it does for many, all these seasons of my life up until now, as it continues to now at the biblical age of 70, still resonates as I've begun, shall we say, a later season. And this resonating, I think, is because the message, though it comes from a man in that later season of life, it's a message that is relevant to every season of our lives, every season. And this is where those well-known verses that we heard from Rick and that Pete Seeger put to music come in. To everything a season, time for every purpose. You see, the old man had lived long enough to observe that life has natural seasons, comings and goings, ebbs and flows, a natural time for this and a time for that. Not one thing in contradiction to another, as it might seem, hearing the words, but in a rhythm, a flow. We plant, and then eventually we pluck up what is planted. No opposition there. We laugh when it's appropriate to laugh. We weep when it's appropriate to weep. We mourn, and we ought not to fear that we will never dance. It's rhythm. So it goes. As he observed, offering wise counsel for those in whatever season, certainly those in earlier seasons of lives than his. As if to say, I'll repeat, don't worry that your weeping will go on forever. There will be a time to laugh again. Mourners will dance again. As if to say, pay attention. Sometimes it's right to speak. And sometimes it's better to keep silence, just to sit. And so on. Well, I don't know about you, but for me, this perspective, this reminder of the natural rhythms of life through those words, those ancient words, has always brought to me a measure of peace throughout the seasons of my life. This said, there's another part of his message, this old man, teacher, preacher's message, that I take a little bit of issue with. Right at the outset of the book, some of you will recall, he complains actually, that there's nothing new under the sun. It's boring. Doc Watson has a song that's along the same lines, something like I can't remember the tune. Sun comes up, sun goes down. Life gets tedious, don't it? Just on and on. In Ecclesiastes, he says this right at the outset. Everything repeats, workers gain nothing from their toil, all is vanity. Here's what he said. All things are wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Are we depressed yet? But remember, this is the beginning of the book. It's where he starts. He names a season of the soul, if you will, that I expect we've all felt at one time or another, in one way or another. So it's where he starts, but it's not where he ends. It's not where I would end, surely. So if the teacher had stopped there, I don't think I would have found grounding or inspiration in the book. And it may not have made it into the Bible anyway. It was a close call, as it was, for books like Ecclesiastes or Job to make it into the canon. But he didn't stop there, the preacher. Eventually, he got around to affirming, as I've already noted, the good in our simple daily lives of working, eating, drinking, being together. And further, and here's my issue. See, unlike him, I would affirm that there are new things. There are new things under the sun. Yes, the natural laws of life I guess don't change. The fundamental things apply. Are you ready to sing that old song? You must remember this. The fundamental things apply. So there's a lot that stays the same, the underlying rhythms. But things repeat in fresh ways, don't they? Look, I have my routines in the morning, especially, that don't change much. I've talked about them before. I get up, I stretch, so on, and I have my morning run, come home, make breakfast. It's just about the same breakfast every day. Make my cup of tea. It's most days the same kind of tea. I sit in my same chair. I read a little. I write a little. Nothing new under the sun for me. But here's the thing. Each morning, speaking of the sun, each morning, particularly if there are no clouds in the sky or just a few, there's a different array of colors. It's a new show every day. This morning, there were no clouds. In fact, I surprised myself by going for a run on Sunday morning because I didn't have any commitments before church, and it was a beautiful day, and it's going to be raining tomorrow. So there's something new. He ran on Sunday. And there were no clouds, but it was a beautiful sky with kind of orange, pink. Maybe some of you saw it at the horizon before the sun rose and then the bright sun. The feeling of the atmosphere varies from day to day. You don't have to run to know that. You just step outside. It's a different feeling every day. And each morning during this season, the colors, there's a shift, sometimes a pretty dramatic shift just overnight. If we pay attention. Sure, autumn every year, but every year is a little different. We're paying attention with fresh eyes. Each morning I read usually something different. I write something different. Maybe I surprise myself with some rising thought, may or may not be profound, but I don't always know what I'm going to write when I write it. Heck, I don't always know what I'm about to say to you before I say it. That should concern you. Thank you. But anyway, how boring it would be to think that we're not going to be surprised at some point during most days, right? But if we think we're not going to be surprised, we might not be surprised. It requires something that we bring to the day, doesn't it? Last week, or a year, or a season. Last week, I shared a couple of lines from Richard Powers' new book, Bewilderment. It's a work of fiction set in the not too distant future. I'm going to share those same couple of sentences. He wrote, so not too distant future. He wrote, Earth had two kinds of people, those who could do the math and follow the science, and those who were happier with their own truths. And here's the key sentence for now. But in our heart's daily practice, we all lived as if tomorrow would be a clone of now. Now, he was writing, and last week I was speaking in the context of the climate crisis, but I think it applies, doesn't it, to just about every dimension of our lives. We so easily can fall into habits, as I do, and habits aren't bad, routines aren't bad, but they can deaden us if we're not paying attention, right? They can blind us to the freshness of every moment. And the Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh put it this way. He said, if you miss the present moment, you miss your appointment with life. That, he went on, is very serious. If you miss your present moment, you miss your appointment with life. Now, we're going to miss the present moment over and over again. That's why we practice, whether sitting on a cushion or just in our daily lives. But we can learn. So let me draw towards a conclusion. I had a little more to say by bringing all that I've said thus far back to some more reflection on not just moments, but on the seasons of our lives. And first, just as we do well not to assume that tomorrow will be a clone of now, similarly, I think it's a life enriching practice over the course of time, not to assume that the next season of our lives is just going to be a continuation of the last one. Oh, maybe a few more gray hairs or wrinkles, but just going to keep on. Instead, taking our cue from just about every tradition and culture, as well as Western psychology, why not learn to honor, learn better to honor? Because I know we do this, you do this, but maybe we don't honor it enough. To honor each season of our lives for what it is, what it brings to us and what we bring to it. Now, as far as the first season of childhood goes, there's maybe not much consciousness about bringing something to the season. That's the beauty of young childhood, isn't it? Most children seem quite naturally just to take life as it comes with their natural enthusiasm, laughter, tears, curiosity, their own unique personalities and gifts. We know in our hurting world, sometimes that's all crushed by oppressive circumstances, but ideally that's what the season of childhood is. And we adults can help it to be that, just to let them be, right? As we enter adolescence and then young adulthood, we again quite naturally find ourselves exploring different paths into the future. We're more self-conscious usually in that period of our lives. Circumscribed by whatever social circumstances, but we're looking, exploring different paths into the future. Just as naturally, we may find ourselves in our teens and 20s and even into our 30s plagued by worries and doubts about the future. What will we do? Who will we be with? Where will we live? How will we manage? And so on. All of which comes with the seasonal territory, that's all. It's human. To everything a season, it's normal. Then comes middle adulthood, including what we call middle age. It's a long stretch, I guess, with its own seasons during the big season. Middle adulthood, middle age. In the Hindu pattern of life, this is called the householder stage. Many of you are familiar with that language, but by whatever name, it's for most of us. Some of you are there still, some of us, some of you are beyond it or looking forward to it. But for most during that extended season, householder stage, we're doing our best to earn a living, support ourselves in the world, perhaps to support a family, practice, learn a trade or career, and or manage a household. It's for most a full to the brim period, right? Overflowing, too many to-do lists. Sometimes it feels like, and maybe it feels like too little time, too many fewer opportunities for reflection or contemplation than we might like. But again, all coming with the seasonal territory. It's what it is to be in this long stage of life, human, normal, to everything, a season. My notes are stuck together. Then comes the transition to what some are calling elderhood, which might include retirement from whatever work we've been doing, and if we're fortunate, more time. Again, social circumstances can circumscribe any one of these. And those of us who wish to make lives better can work to relieve oppressive circumstances. But if we're fortunate, maybe more time for reflection and contemplation, perhaps more time as well to expand on what had been something we called a hobby, or to engage in volunteer opportunities we hadn't had time for, to help care for others, to help heal a hurting world from a place we may not think we have it. But every one of you in these later stages, every one of us gains some life learned, sometimes hard earned wisdom to share. And all this is as we physically slow down, because we have no choice. A lot of us have noticed that the replacement cells just don't work quite as well as the originals. And if we accept that this is the case, comes with the territory. Not always easy, particularly we hear every week in the joys and sorrows, someone with cancer or some other difficult challenge or disease. It comes often with aging, sometimes for younger people too. Not always easy to accept that those replacement cells don't function as well but if we do accept as best we can, this later season, as we approach and then live beyond the biblical 70, can be a season of beginning to let go of ceaseless striving, maybe to let go of any attachment we still have to our more youthful selves. I'm never going to run a 5-minute mile again, for example, or 6, probably, maybe not even 7. To let go of attachment, any attachment to our youthful selves, to let go more fully into life, that appointment with life, each day, each season. But now finally my conclusion, whatever our season of life, may we remember that to everything a season is just how things are. And it's good. It's good. Not always easy, we know that. But to everything a season is how things are, and that there are blessings to be found in each season, even in the midst of trial and trouble. Most of us have learned that. You don't wish for trial and trouble, but there are blessings that come often. Blessings if we do our best to awaken. It's why we practice. It's why we're here each Sunday. Do our best to awaken each day to the surprise of what each new day each new season just might bring. So may it be. Here, after all, is a ritual, a routine. Same thing each Sunday? No, only looks the same. We freshly bring our love to these candles. We bring ourselves freshly each week to this house. We bring ourselves freshly to our faith that our flaming chalice represents, just as we can freshly bring it to others. To everything a season, and a time for every purpose. We're going to sing up here. I invite you to maybe sing really quietly the chorus. At home, you all can sing as loudly as you want. Oh, that's you all over there. There's the camera. Each season brings its blessings. To each season, we can bring blessings. May it be so this season as we go forth into this beautiful fall day. May we bring blessings to one another, to each other, wherever we are, with whomever we are. May we bring blessings to life. As our dear friend Dave Egan used to conclude services, our worship concludes, our service begins.
This is a day of beginnings, time to remember and move on, time to believe what God is bringing, laying to rest the pain that's gone.